What do you aspire to be? A question not many people, let alone college students, know the answer to. In an age of stress and worry, it does not surprise me that most people would avoid thinking about the future. However, whether they acknowledge it or not, I would argue that most, if not all, have the slightest idea in the back of their mind what their aspirations are. Aspirations can be anything from being a good father or mother to being a good friend, having a good job, making a lot of money, or even saving the world. Everyone has at least the slightest idea of how they want their life to turn out. For me, it was not until very recently that I decided to acknowledge the aspirations I had for my life. From a young age, I've always been a quiet, closed-off kid. I view stuff like big dreams and emotions as a sign of weakness and immaturity. While kids around me dreamed about being in the NFL or NBA, I kept my goals easily attainable in order to avoid failure. That was a big theme throughout my childhood, the fear of failure, something that held me back in a lot of things. Sports, school, even relationships have all been affected from this fear. Only to add to my problem of being closed offness also, my mom decided to homeschool me and my siblings for the rest of our schooling. Fast forward to ninth grade year, I had to decide whether I was going to play sports at the high school or quit them altogether. Well, I did just make it sound like it was my choice. In reality, my parents probably would have forced me to play either way. Luckily for me, it was probably a good decision to continue playing, as it forced me out of my shell for the first time in my life, and it forced me to make relationships with people I'd never met before. Once I actually got to play varsity in these sports, I had a dream about playing college ball, something that has never crossed my mind even before that. And after high school, I decided to play college football at Bethel. My first semester was last September, and even with COVID, everything was going great until practice started. I had a lingering injury, and I was not performing as well as I'd like to. And since I seemed to tie my worth to sports in prior years, my poor performance really affected me. In addition, my grades were not as good as usual, which just added to the mess. All of this just caused me to want to stay in my dorm room by myself and not do anything, which gave me a lot of time to think. And one day, a thought popped into my head, which I do not know how, but it did. The thought was, what do I aspire to do with my life? Trust me, this question surprised me also, but it forced me to think. Over the next couple weeks, the question popped in and out of my head until I came to a realization. I was watching a show, and one of the characters in the show died. It was just like any other death in a show. And at his funeral, all of his family and friends were talking about how great he was and how they will miss him. And just at that moment, the question popped in my head and something clicked like that. How would my family and my friends think of me if I died right now? I know, a very morbid thought, but it caused me to come up with an answer to the question. What I aspire to do with my life is to leave an impression on the people closest around me. And on top of all that, as a Christian, I aspire to serve God. I do not want to wonder about how people around me thought of me. I want to treat them and act in a way that will give me confidence so that I will know how they think of me. That is the conclusion I came up with to that question. And since that realization, I have tried to do everything in my power to come closer to my goals. So, I challenge you to think, what do you aspire to be? Thank you.